100.
A new report just out in the Washington Post compares the 2016 presidential race to what happened in the 2014 midterm elections by comparing Donald Trump to Obamacare. Many Republican lawmakers are trying to distance themselves from their party's frontrunner, especially vulnerable ones in swing states. You might remember that many vulnerable Democrats did the same in the past 2 election cycles, trying to distance themselves from the controversial law. It did not work. The Democrats lost 15 Senate seats in those 2 elections. Could the same thing happen to Republicans this year if Trump is the nominee? Here to debate it, Garland Nixon, a Democratic strategist and radio host, and Gianno Caldwell from Caldwell Strategic Consulting. He is a Republican strategist. So, Gianno, if this theory is true, the worry lies among your party. How do you see it?
Well, I think that article is flawed. They made an attempt to say that Obamacare, which it did cause a number of members to actually lose their races, but what they didn't mention is the fact that a number of those members embraced Obamacare and they supported it and they advocated for it. In this case, you got Republicans, conservatives, and Tea Party members coalescing against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in the eyes, as I believe, many Republican voters isn't a Republican candidate per se. He is the brand Donald J. Trump. That was much more apparent when he said that he would run as a third-party candidate if the GOP didn't treat him well. So I don't think that this comparison is really valid. I think it's flawed in its premise because, again, you got folks of the Republican Party that's been coalescing against him, and he's not really, they haven't embraced him, if you will.
So, Garland, it sounds like he's saying that many voters will not see Donald Trump or won't tie Donald Trump to the Republicans if he gets the nomination. How do you see it?
Well, I think that that's correct to some extent. I think that there are a lot of people that won't. So the question becomes for a potential Republican candidate is how do they endear themselves to the base? Because let's face it, Donald Trump is very popular with the base. I would argue that the Democrats, if you look at Kentucky and you look at the numbers, what actually happened there was they ran away from a very popular president with his signature plan, and they dampened the base. They didn't endear themselves to the base. So the question is it possible for a Republican candidate to kind of fence sit and say, I want to associate myself with Donald Trump's base, but I certainly don't want to associate myself with his more negative policies? I don't think it's possible. I don't think they can sit on the fence, and it's going to be a tough road ahead for them.
There haven't been many, well-known Republican elected officials who have come out and embraced Donald Trump. I think Jeff Sessions was the first sitting senator to do so. Gianno, why is that?
Yes. Well, a number of them feel that his rhetoric is a bit draconian, and you see that it's not the standard politics. It's very unconventional at this point. I wanted to make a point here by saying that Republican candidates, specifically in the Senate, would be able to kind of distance themselves from Donald Trump, say specifically like Mark Kirk from my home state of Illinois. He would be able to do so because Mitch McConnell gave the blessing to do so by saying, hey, you can run ads against Donald Trump. So it'll be possible to distance themselves from Donald Trump. And as you mentioned, John, there hasn't been a number of candidates that have come out and embraced him, if you will. And I don't believe that unless there's some turnaround with the things that he's saying, that there will be a number of Republicans, especially in these very tough races, that are going to come out and embrace him.
There is an article in The Hill today, Garland, maybe you saw it. It's under the title, Trump Faces Daunting Gender Gap. And it says a new CNN poll released Thursday, taken before the spat with rival Ted Cruz over his wife, found that 73% of registered female voters in the United States had an unfavorable view of Trump. That's in line with a Reuters poll from last week that found more than half of American women hold a very unfavorable view of the billionaire. A recent NBC Wall Street Journal poll found that 47% of Republican women could not see themselves supporting Trump, a number significantly higher than for any other GOP candidate. When women predominate in the voting booth, how do you win an election if you don't have women on your side, Garland?
Well, and that has deadly implications for the Republicans, because in the past, one of the big numbers across all demographics that caused a lot of problems for the Republicans were single women voters. Now, the question has to be, what's going to happen on the other side? Because let's not forget, there's a rather alarming dynamic on our side, where the question is, how many Bernie voters are going to be willing to come back and coalesce behind Hillary? So I think there's issues on both sides that we're going to have to try to figure out. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
And I absolutely agree with that. And I would also say, when you look at the numbers of Hillary Clinton, that was one of her biggest issues throughout this campaign, the fact that she couldn't get women to support her, the fact that her supporters have demonized women for not supporting her. So when we look at the numbers where it comes to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it seems to be problematic on both sides.
That's why this election looks to be like no other. All right, Gianno Caldwell, Garland Nixon. Good discussion. Thank you both.